Seeking love? Let's dive in together. Welcome to Radiant Romance, my journey to true love. Join me, Christine Howard, as I navigate the twists and turns of finding my soulmate with grace, ease, and joy. Don't miss your chance to be front row with me in this exhilarating journey. Tune in and be inspired to manifest your own radiant romance. Welcome to another episode of Radiant Romance, my journey to true love. I am Christine Howard, your host and subject of this reality show, which is following my journey of finding a partner in midlife. I'm excited to bring you this next episode, which is my in-depth conversation with the amazing, adorable, and wise midlife dating coach, Jonathon Aslay. We recently spent 90 minutes together for a true deep dive into some powerful topics around dating, mating, and relating in midlife and beyond. This is raw, this is real, and I was thinking to cut it, but I decided I'm keeping it all. And I will share full disclosure, I am still digesting the insights and ahas that I had from this conversation. I will be bringing you future episodes with my reflections and insights. So for today, I am so pleased to present in its entirety this beautiful conversation with Jonathon. It's filled not just with wisdom we can apply, but with some laughs and an oops or two. Enjoy the video and our conversation.
If you say my name right.
Jonathon Aslay.
There you go.
I am so excited and grateful, and there's another word that wants to come through. In anticipation, I think, of this conversation. The universe has brought us together in a very divine way.
Yeah.
We have a mutual friend, my dear friend Janice, and it was fascinating because she knew of my plans to really put myself out there on the journey, and that I wanted to meet people. And she said, "Oh, my friend Jonathon has this event. Maybe you should go check it out." Perfect timing. So when I went and I met you, and people love you. I scoped you out a little bit.
By the way, for your audience, really quickly, I had a singles mixer.
Mixer,
yeah. I just want everyone to know, like, when they said event.
Thank you. Singles mixer. And we've had this conversation, totally kindred spirits. I so appreciate all the wisdom you shared, your open heart, the personality you bring to this midlife dating thing. Yeah. And I'm super excited for us to dive deep into some of my stuff, hear some
we're going to work
wisdom.
On your stuff.
I'm afraid. I'm a little afraid about this. So, okay. But before we start, I actually have a question I've never asked you before.
Okay.
So I know you're on the journey, as I am, right? To find that partner. I know self-love is a big part of your journey. Like, how do you keep yourself fueled and in this place of faith or trust or knowing that there is somebody there for you that will come in at some point?
That's an interesting question, because part of what I do as a dating and relationship coach, I teach a manifestation exercise, which is kind of your mission statement, your affirmation, your mantra, if you will. And so mine happens to be 2 pages long. So, and it's written in the context of not, the qualities and listing them out. It's really telling a story. So I kind of think of along the lines of like the following. There's hope, there's belief, and then there's knowing. Like, And below hope is like, disbelief kind of thing. Yeah. Or like, so first we get to a level of hope. Like, I hope I find them. I hope I find them. I hope, like that little engine that would, I hope I can, I hope I can, I hope I can kind of thing. Belief is that next rung of the ladder, is saying, okay, well, I will go from hope. I'm going to go to belief. And in that space of belief, I actually create a daydream for myself of kind of visualizing how it'll look. Now, I don't do it from the perspective it's supposed to happen just like this.
Okay.
It's to lean into the feeling of what it's like when you connect with that person, where there's comfort and ease and tranquility and, God, there's so many different words I can think of, reciprocity and compassion and care and generosity and all these things. Like, lean into the feelings. Okay, which is very it's Abraham, huge. If you will. Like, think about the feelings. The next rung of the ladder is knowing. Like, when you can, well, at least for me, when I hold a space, I know it's going to happen. And if I can let go of the attachment of when it's going to happen, and just, it's kind of like build it, they will come kind of thing. Yeah. I've been building the field, like in Field of Dreams. I put the mounds and the plates and so I put all the pieces in place. Okay. So then how do I hold that? Like, in other words, I can get discouraged. Swiping on the apps can be discouraging. Talking to someone and have it not go anywhere can be discouraging. I look at them all of pieces as a puzzle. Okay. Like, I look at them as just part of the stepping stones, rather than look at it from a place of discouragement, frustration. And I mean, I want to honor that I do feel those things. Okay. But I immediately turn to gratitude. Like, I feel as though gratitude is that real shift, because gratitude to me is the essence of love. Like, I mean, totally. There's lots of words, compassion and everything, but to me, when you're in a state of gratitude, that's the closest feeling to me when you're with somebody romantically. Like, you love them, and I'm trying to remove but from my language, I catch myself. And when I'm in a state of appreciation, it kind of accelerates the love, and being in the compassion and generosity and those things. So, kind of to put a bow on this feeling, and I'm okay if it doesn't happen. Like, I'm okay. And by the way, I say this because as a coach, I've been so driven into believing you have to find the one kind of thing. And I've adopted that. Okay. And I also recognize that living a full life doesn't have to be with a partner. It's great to have it. Yeah. But I don't need it from a place of desperation anymore. And I feel like that's the real part of the journey. Yeah, it is. It is. It's that pin, I think you talk about in your book. I think that pin that kind of puts it in perspective. So if I'm hearing you then, well, let me ask this. You said the knowing, and I love how you did the ladder. And I see that for myself as well. If you close your eyes and you tap in, do you have that knowing kind of as an overall energy around your partner? Or are you still building to the knowing? God, that's a great question. So I would say I'm building to the know. It's kind of like, and by the way, if I reference Abraham, I'm referencing Abraham Hicks. And, there's something that I'm a fan. Esther would say, I'm getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. So is the knowing still a work in process? See, this is where our humanness comes in, because we want evidence. Like, okay, if I had the partner that I can go back and say, look, this is what I did. Yeah. But when you're in this space, it's really, this is where faith comes in. It's like trust and faith is like such, it's a powerful force, and it feels so like, it's like trying to catch a mist or a cloud or something. So I can't say that. I can't answer it from that place of definitiveness, because that's what it feels like. Okay. Sometimes it's just dumb luck. I don't want to, as spiritual as I am, sometimes I just believe that shitty things do happen sometimes. Okay. And sometimes it's just dumb luck. Yeah. And I know that goes against like spirituality, but I contemplate all modalities. Okay. All right. Beautiful. I like the vision, the picture, the story, and really feeling. I'm a big Dr. Joe Dispenza
fan student, and my intention card, which we'll get to this, Jonathan's going to give his weigh in on it. I have a column on here, which is when I'm with my partner, these are the feelings I'm feeling. And as Dr. Joe says, your thought sends it out, and then the feelings draw it back. You send the signal, the thought sends the signal out, and then how you feel is magnetizing things to you.
Yes.
So I've always kind of held on to that. But
and I observe that there's I think sometimes when we get too specific, we make the portal more, let's just say the portal for the universe to bring us what we want sometimes can be restrictive. So for example, I'll use I'm looking from a woman's perspective. I'd like him to be 6'2", 6-pack abs, blah, blah, blah. Now you made it specific. How about he's just in good shape?
Yeah.
So now the universe goes, I can get a guy, but he's 6'1.5", okay? And I'm just using this as an example.
I agree, yeah.
When you make it a little bit broader, but still encompasses what your heart, your soul desires. Exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's when we get sometimes a little too granular, the universe goes, God, you're making it fucking tough on me.
Yeah.
By the way, is it okay if I use the effort?
Yes, you can. Okay, beautiful. So we're going to free flow this. And again, we're going to tap in different topics, but I think it's a good place to start with something we have in common, which is our work in self-love.
Okay.
And I know you are a huge advocate.
I have a book.
Yes,
by the way, my book's upstairs.
And I have it on my phone, which we're using to record. So otherwise, I did some screenshots last night, and I love how you set it out. And I have seen that. I have seen that for myself, where in my marriage, where I wasn't loving myself and all the things that created. And that was really a big part, has been a big part of my healing journey, is reclaiming and loving myself. What's my question around that? I love that you're teaching that. I guess maybe it's a compliment to you as a coach and mentor that's front and center in the work. And I think if anything for me, I teach the same thing with my clients. It's chapter 1 of my book, Authentic Self-Worth, which self-love is a part of that. But it's so foundational. And are you seeing, I guess, in the people you're working with, and if you were to put a trend together, are you seeing more of people embracing that journey in midlife for themselves?
Yes, partially because I beat the drum out of it over and over and over. So if you watch my videos, and I've got a pretty decent sized YouTube channel. So to me, self-love encompasses a lot of different things. So the word itself sometimes my book is called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? And the idea is it's self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-respect, self-reliance, it's all those self words. And the reason why I love is just because I think, there's that saying, how do you love another if you don't love yourself, kind of thing. And yet at the same time, I also recognize one of the hardest things to do as a human being is to love oneself. It's so easier to give love to everyone else. Like you give it to your children, you give it to your family, you give it to your friends. And oftentimes we are our own, for lack of a better word, our own worst enemy. So, and I say that with a lot of reservation. When I say enemy, it's just we can oftentimes self-crucify. We can judge ourselves. We can shame ourselves. So the idea is when we open up to more love for ourselves, we become more of a magnetic attractor for the kind of romantic love. And so my dating coaching is just as much about what not to look for. Like, in other words, like discernment, like kind of filter out what's not right and filter in what is right for you. But my biggest message is personal development, self-help, spiritual work, including therapy, because it's easy to get into a relationship. Relationships are easy. You can be in a relationship with someone you can be miserable. It could be short-lived. I mean, they're actually easy to get into. Yeah. It's what I always say in my videos, a juicy, delicious, healthy, happy relationship requires a bit of work ahead of time, and then being able to work with a partner too. I know I am surrounded by so many couples that couples coaching and therapy is part of their practice
I
as a
love it.
couple.
I love it.
Like they do retreats, they do, camps like what I was sharing with you before.
Mm-hmm.
They do variety of things that is kind of like group therapy meets pajama party. I
I love
jokingly
it.
say, and the idea is to
Yeah.
do it with whether groups of people or individually
Yeah.
or with a coach to help with communication skills.
Mm.
See, that's the other thing is most humans, believe it or not, don't recognize that their capacity to communicate in a way to be seen, heard, understood, and felt by your partner
Yeah.
is oftentimes there's friction. And most everybody thinks the other person is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to any therapist. A therapist will tell you every couples that comes in, they're doing this. It's their fault. No,
Right.
it's their fault.
Right.
Instead of this.
Yeah, shining
so it starts
back
here.
on them. Yeah. All right. Couple things to unpack. Number one, I love the expanded how you roll all those different selves in. That really expanded my perspective of it, and I can see where it's like it balances the wheel, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And I think I tend to focus on some areas, but I loved when I was speed reading your book last night. I'm like,
it's an easy read, actually. And by the way, it's intended to be like, I love the Untethered Soul. Like that's one of my all-time favorite. I tried to do like a Untethered Soul light. And I mean like really, really light.
Beautiful.
Like
it's very
concept.
digestible nuggets, which was great. Okay. And then the communication thing. I think, and one of the things, make sure we're recording. Yeah. One of the things I picked up from the book too, that again, we have in common, which is I love, we're cut from some of the same cloth because self-responsibility is huge in my books. It's one of my core values I have on my website, and it's a core value of myself, self-responsibility for everything that's going on in my life, all I have.
Yeah.
And the communication thing, again, I can go back to, my prior administration, as my neighbor calls it, when I was married. And it was like this kind of thing, and it was the other person's fault. And let me tell you, it was so humbling for me to turn that mirror on myself and start to really get honest with myself.
Yeah.
It was like, it's not comfortable. And there's shame I went through. There was sadness. There was a bunch of stuff came up, and on the other side is a lot of freedom. And I can see now and be so grateful now. But what, I don't know if somebody maybe is just starting that journey of the self-exploration. What little like pep talk can you give them to say, So
I think first and foremost, so I'm going to give kind of an example of what happened in my own life. So I went through, it's 15 plus years ago. I just turned 40 and went through a divorce. And I put myself out on the dating marketplace. And I'll never forget, I met this woman, nice woman, great date, something wasn't right. A couple days later, met a nice woman, great date, something wasn't right. And a couple days later, I mean, like this went on, and I mean, I'll be candid with you, I had 100 first dates in my first year. And I realized that the common denominator was me. So, and I was like it took me 100 knocks on the door to go, wait a minute, I'm the common denominator here. And so right at that time, the movie The Secret came out, What the Bleep came out. I had these CDs of Tony Robbins that had been in a box for 10 years. No, I think they were cassette tapes.
Oh boy.
Okay, just to give an example. So I start listening to that. And then I got introduced to Abraham.
Okay.
And little by little, I began doing introspective work. So first, at least for me, I had to identify that I'm the common denominator in all of my experiences. You called it self-responsibility, which is exactly like taking ownership of my experience.
Yeah.
And then I immersed myself in studying. I mean, I did, over the years, I've done the Hoffman process. I've done insight seminars. I have a neuro-linguistic programming. I went through a 2-week course on that. I even did Reiki.
Wow. Yeah.
I haven't done massage therapy yet, but I'm just kidding. And I recognized that, and I did therapy too. In fact, I was in a relationship for 6 years with a woman who was a therapist. So interestingly enough, it was kind of both romantic, and it was like she was my therapist at the same time because she
Yeah.
helped me heal. And
Oh.
particularly, she helped me heal my relationship with my ex-spouse. She
Mm.
was a big advocate for me to really heal my relationship with my ex-spouse. And that, I mean, I wasn't planning on sharing this, but I realized that was such a huge catalyst for me to even be in a space. Because if there's, and I know a lot of people have contentious relationships, and
Yeah.
that's never going to change. She just encouraged me, just keep giving her love, keep giving her love, keep giving her love. And through the years of just doing that, it
Yeah.
actually shifted our relationship.
Beautiful.
So let's see, but what's the thing I'd like to recommend everyone? You have to want to, when I say do the work, first it takes real deep self-examination and saying, okay, every single thing in my past has been to some degree my experience, to some degree. Not, I mean, listen, we can have, I mean, I'm not here to absolve people that have been physically or emotionally abused in their relationship, but our ability to stay in something longer than necessary, taking ownership of it.
Yeah.
And the minute you take ownership of it and you begin to notice your patterns. So this is where the book like Love It or Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, to understand love attachment style, to read the book Getting the Love You Want by Harvell Hendricks, Helen Hunt, to understand something known as the imago, just to name a few.
Yeah.
Helps an individual get a better sense of why they made choices in their lives in relationships. And since we're talking about midlife, many of us have been married once or twice. I mean, I haven't been. And we've had one or two significant relationships. So, and we might have had little skirmishes along the way too. Little short-lived experiences. So when I believe taking ownership of everything helps put you on track. And then I'm a junkie for personal development work. I think you are too. Like,
Totally.
I'm exhausting to date, okay? Because I like to unpack everything.
Oh gosh! All right.
I know I gave you a lot there.
I know. I'm sitting with it. I'm sitting with it because I agree. I wholeheartedly agree, and I sense that I would be resonating with your answer. And I think, you know, to what happened to you and what happened to me, we both had key things happen, and you know, so how. Negative things, right? You had the divorce that kind of started you on the track, and are seeing like all these 100 dates, and like why is nothing sticking? Why isn't things?
Can I interrupt though?
Sure.
So what I didn't share, not only was I going through a divorce, I lost my high-end corporate job, which I was making a significant six-figure income, and then the market crash.
Wow, I think I read that in your book too.
So it wasn't just the divorce. I had a complete shattering of my identity.
Wow.
And I was using dating as kind of self-medication.
Oh.
Like it was a way to, because before swipe apps, but someone would write you and someone would say, oh, you're handsome, or someone would say, I'm interested in meeting you. And you'd connect and you have that first chemistry going on, and you'd be like, oh, I like you, you like me. And I felt a sense of self-worth when others were reflecting upon me what was so lacking inside of me. So when I said I had 100 dates, there was this part of my my identity that was completely gone.
Wow.
And so the dating experiences were like again, it was self-medication. I didn't realize it was preparing me for the path I'm on today. Like I didn't realize that all of this experience led me to how I'm a dating and relationship coach today. And I coach from that place of, look, I understand the broken, wounded, divorced guy because, you know, I went through alimony, child support, visitation rights, you know, dealing with what happens to us in midlife that isn't the same as our 20s and 30s.
Yeah. Well, so one of the core takeaways, if I were to sum it up for those listening, watching, the self-awareness piece. So ultimately, we both, in our own way, got to that place of self-awareness. For me, it was very much my crises when they happen, my wake-up calls when they happen. And people can absolutely start that self-awareness now by just taking time to reflect on where they're at and where they want to be without having to have a crisis in their life, right?
So, well, that's interesting. So the answer is yes. And humbling events are gigantic. I mean, the hard part about a humbling event is you spend time in the pit of despair, if you will. I guess it's Jericho in the biblical sense, or Joseph,
Okay.
or excuse me, Joseph, in that pit of despair. Having a humbling event can knock you off your foundation for a while. At the same time, I do believe, I think or at least let me just say it for myself. I tend to learn more from my mistakes than my successes. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's like I had to experience.
Absolutely, right.
Like I did a video yesterday, like the 7 things I wished I knew before I got divorced. But if I heard everything today, I wouldn't have listened.
No, right.
So that's why I said I wished I knew them, not advice I would have heard.
Yeah.
Because of,
that's a good point.
I believe that the experience itself is part of the journey.
It is.
The contrast is part of the journey.
It is. And to your point, and I say this in the work I do, everybody comes to that point in their own way, in their own time. Some people does take that big, crash. For other people, they just start getting to the point where I'm just not happy, or they start looking at their age and like the clock is ticking. I have all this external success. Now I want that inner fulfillment. And oh, by the way, I want somebody really, soulful to share that journey with me. And then they start to go on that, their own awakening journey.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me share something with everybody. So I'm, when I shared that I lost my professional and my money, particularly for men, that is such a critical focal point of our identity that it really crushed me. The work I did, whether it's all, I mean, not only the coach, even being a coach has been, helpful for me. Like, in other words, helping others has been helping me. And certainly all the things I've done. The self-love work is like a vaccination to emotional chaos by doing the inner work. So by the time, and I'm going to share with your audience, I lost a child in 2018. And most parents would say that would wipe them out. Most parents would say, I probably couldn't survive that. I think doing all the work ahead of time prepared me for this experience. And don't get me wrong, I've cried. I mean, I still cry to this day, but it didn't wipe me out.
Yeah.
And that's what personal development, self-help, spiritual work, self-love prepares you for. So then when you do have possibly another humbling event, you're just not wiped out by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, he was the impetus for writing the book.
Beautiful.
So it was actually, I was writing a different book. It was called Compassionate Dating. I never trademarked this, so I don't want to give the rest of the title out if I ever do write it. But I immediately felt called to writing a book about self-love, because when losing a child I had a choice. I could grieve with suffering, or I chose to grieve with love. And so whatever that means to any individual, what it meant for me was to just really examine my own life, because we have no control.
Yeah.
I mean, he was gone in 5 minutes.
Wow.
And I had a friend who recently passed away. It was cancer, and we knew it coming for months. But we have no control when things are going to happen. So learning to appreciate every moment is really, I think, one of the greatest gifts we have. Or we can, let me reframe that. I think by learning to appreciate every moment, it's a gift we give up to ourselves. And that's a self-love gift.
I love that. Well, I think you talk about it in the book too, to stop complaining.
Oh God.
And that is definitely that was a fast, easy drop for me. Like, stop complaining. You've got your life, you've got your kids, you've got this, you've got that. Like,
I want you to read a book by Larry Winget called "Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life." And it really, that's my chapter is the embodiment of that.
Okay.
But it's really, because complaining energy, and certainly in the dating realm, I even said it earlier, feeling frustration, feeling disappointment, oh, by the way, and I know I see this happen with my clients are mostly women. They're swiping on a guy, or someone emailed them on a dating app.
Okay.
And they're, what what makes him think I'd be interested in him? Like I hear that attitude.
Yeah.
It's some or a variation of that. Like, who is he thinking messaging me?
Yeah.
He's so not my type. That so lacks love and compassion. That attitude, the minute you look at another human being with even the remote, even just a tiny little bit of disgust.
Yeah.
That's the least loving, that is such an amplification of no love.
You're calling me out here because on my Bumble app, I have 500 likes. And I'm like, I've just scrolled through a few of the pictures. I'm like, did they even read my profile? You know, so.
Okay, so let's play with that one for a second. Did they know? They saw a photograph and they're just giving it a shot. Yeah. Now, their reason behind it. More of it. Yeah. Yeah, well, to some degree, you're making it more than it, but it could be, hey, I just thought you were attractive. I swiped, or I felt you were a kindred spirit and I swiped. Whatever their reason for swiping, it's irrelevant. Yeah. How you looked at that speaks volumes of where your heart is at. So you want this gigantic love, sweetheart, but so when I swipe left, I send you love. I send you love. I send you love. I send you love. I wish you the best. I wish you the best. I wish you the best. While I'm critiquing the hell out of them. I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, before
you know what I critique? I'm like, now this is terrible. But I'm like, are you that stupid to put that shitty photograph as your first photo? Yeah. I'm sorry. There is so much apathy in the effort human beings put to curate a profile. Okay. And I'm just angry because I'm a voice, because I recognize that apathy is ignorance or naivety. Okay. I get that. You genuinely want a life partner. Yeah. Like you want that. That's like the biggest decision you're ever going to make in your life. Whether for some people it was, their professional capacity or having a child. No, your life partner is the biggest decision. You should put gigantic maximum quality effort. I'm just anal about that. Yeah. And it saddens me how men and women, and I'm saying the ladies, are just as equally as bad at curating a profile for themselves. And then they wonder why they have poor experiences. So I'm a little bit, this is where my spiritual warrior comes out. And I'm just like, I'm going to yell at you for being stupid, but I don't mean it that way. I say it with
You're saying it with love. I sense that. I sense it. Okay, so before we segue into some of the specific dating stuff, I want to backtrack a little bit. And you talked about your journey of having gone through your divorce and then these dates. And then this is kind of how you got into your work when you started the self-reflection. And can you give, for my dear audience here, a bit of your journey of how you became this very well-known, popular, the guy's got an amazing YouTube channel. I love it. I see the love that you're bringing into the work that you do and how much you're advocating for those midlife people that do want to find a partner. So how did you get into being this midlife dating expert?
So I don't like the word expert, but I appreciate it.
No. What's a better word?
No. And I'm just saying that I'm more of a, I just have a perception and opinion and I share it. And if it resonates with someone, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. Only because human behavior is so nuanced and complex. I don't care. Anyone who says they're an expert in my mind, each individual is like a thumbprint. They're so different and unique that advice that's generalized doesn't necessarily work for everybody is my point. Okay. So how did I get into this? So I told you I had 100 first dates. Yes. Okay. A lot of times I'm communicating with half a dozen women at the same time, all over the country. Oh, wow. A lot of it over the telephone. I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I even had an 8-hour conversation with a woman once. We started at 8 p.m. We finished at 4 in the morning. And it was my therapy. Oh. She was telling me about her divorce. I'm telling her about my divorce. We're bonding in this shared experience. And what happened was I began really listening to every woman's experience. And I started to notice a common denominator. Excuse me, let me backtrack. So then we would just talk to each other in a friendly capacity, non-romantic, because I could be talking to lots of different people. And I would say, oh, how's dating going for you? And they'd start to tell me the dating experiences and I'd share my dating experiences. And then it would be like I would start noticing patterns. I'm like, God, I'm hearing the same version of a guy out there. So I just started to notice patterns.
Okay.
Because I was spending every single night for years talking to women on the phone.
Wow.
Sometimes physically meeting them, sometimes just talking on the phone. And
you were committed.
I was, you know what? Because I was lonely, I was by myself, and I had nothing to do.
Okay.
You know, I didn't have, I mean, to the extent when I had my children, I spent time with them, but I was in a really dark place. And pretty soon I made friends with women, and then I'd get a phone call. Hey, Jonathan, what do you think I should do to change my profile to make it better? I'd like a guy's perspective. And I'm like, okay, do this photo, and this photo, take this one out, rewrite this, blah, 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 blah. And then I'd get a phone call like 3 weeks later. Jonathan, I met a really great guy based on your suggestions. This wasn't happening once, Christine, over and over and over again. And for close to 2 years or more.
Wow.
I didn't realize by de facto, I was preparing myself for my next evolution.
That's so
because
cool.
I was out of work. Okay, so remember I said I lost my corporate job.
Yeah.
I was draining finances.
Okay.
I was in a dark place. But this was like I said, self-medication. It wasn't healthy per se, but it wasn't unhealthy either, because I was in you know, it wasn't like I was being disingenuous with anyone. So I then dated a woman who was a life coach, an internet marketing coach, a very successful multimillionaire. I got introduced to her and dated her for about 5 months. And I got to see the inner world of coaching. Okay. So I was like, oh, this is fascinating. So about, I think it was a year after we had our brief relationship. And by the way, I was a train wreck then. So the fact that she accepted me was actually, well, because she saw the potential in me, kind of thing.
Aww.
Yeah, actually, a lot of women dated me and saw the potential. By the way, I can recognize those guys that look like they're, well, I actually did evolve. Obviously, I did. It just took long. I mean, I eventually did. So the potential wasn't misplaced.
Right.
But when I saw her world, I thought, this was right around when putting up a landing page and a sales page and a website was like the Wild West. So I put together a cheesy website. And then 3 weeks later, I get a telephone call or an email. Would you be interested in being a guest on a radio show?
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. I mean, those first few years I was talking out of my ass. It was the world according to Jonathan. And honestly, it hasn't changed much since then. That's why I only rebuff a little bit at the term expert.
Okay.
But what I began doing, I got a hold of every relationship book out there. I started to read book after book after book. I watched videos.
Wow.
I started to do workshops. I did, like I said, the Hoffman process, Insight Institute, personal development. I just immersed myself in wanting to understand human pair bonding. And so while I started as just helping improve profiles and then helping women understand men, it has morphed in the last decade and a half to being more of an advocate for individual empowerment. And the reason why I focus on women, you ladies are these beautiful creatures. You guys are so loving, so compassionate. And at the same time, you have a tendency to give your power away to men, because we've literally been indoctrinated in men are the provider protectors and they're supposed to lead the relationship process.
Yeah.
In the midlife category, which 75% of singles are divorced, you have a very broken, dysfunctional population. You don't want to give responsibility for leadership of the relationship to a guy. So I'm an advocate. You take, if you are in charge of your own relationship destiny, you don't give that to a guy. And so I'm an advocate for that, because I've witnessed so many women give their power away. So I'm an advocate for personal empowerment. That's what sovereignty is, the essence of self-love, individual sovereignty. So I can quickly identify when a woman's given her power away, and I can hopefully cause her to rethink her strategy.
Yeah. Well, okay. So,
by the way, does that feel true?
Yes.
I mean, you observe this with your clients.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. And if I look at my own journey, where I have little by little, in fact, last year was a big thing of me really reclaiming more of my power than ever before. But I want to go back to you for a second, and then we'll come back to this.
Okay.
Is like, I'm impressed. And I know I've heard your story before, but just sitting here talking to you, I feel like you were the mad scientist almost, like, right? With not bad in a bad way, but you were so like excited or just into all that you were learning. You really wanted to understand it and then apply it and then be able to teach it. And that's exactly what you're doing now. And I can see why I'm calling you an expert, because I feel like you need to claim that a little bit, maybe.
Well,
you know?
no, and I appreciate that. And I didn't share this earlier, but I also was addicted to cocaine during this time.
Okay.
And I bring this up because
wow.
it was self-medication, whether it's, you know, alcohol, whether it's one glass of wine a night or something else. I think to some degree, when we're in pain, we're looking for ways to avoid pain. And so and for quite some time, I was self-medicating. It was the dating, it was the, you know, drugs, it was the going out. And I'm able to see, here's the thing. I understand what a man goes through when his identity is crushed, when he goes through a divorce. I understand the emotional effects, and I understand it at such a level that I was abusing myself. So I feel like I'm even a better coach because I can recognize when a man is in this pain and guide my clientele either to, you know, steer in a completely different direction or be a support person if that's the choice you're going to make. So when I say I've been in the pit of despair, I mean, I've had like the perfect storm, and including the loss of a child. So I speak from that place.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey. What a journey. And again,
by the way, I'm grateful for every moment of it.
Yeah, no,
like the mad scientist, I love that. Yeah, I'm like I'm constantly going, oh, how can we peel an onion a different way?
Right. Oh my gosh. Okay. So you've studied a lot, learned a lot, seen a lot, and I get where you're at and how you're so passionate about it, and I so appreciate who you are now, where you are now. In that, again, I feel this resonance with you, and because you were so willing to do the work and just keep at it, you knew it. Maybe you didn't know, but at some point you would come out from the clouds and have these.
I'm having an interesting awareness right now. I think part of my passion for helping women was because I'm so grateful that they gave love to this train wreck. There were moments where I was rather disingenuous to some degree. I was out of integrity. Let me give you an example. Chemistry is a powerful motivator to go, oh my God, you're the most amazing woman I've ever saw. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. You're so wonderful. I can see us getting married in the next 3 months. You are so amazing. Let's go on a trip together. We call that love bombing, right? So chemistry is such a powerful, you know, driver to like be in that, like a feeding frenzy, like a shark. Okay. And so there were times where I was kind of disingenuous. And so I don't know if this is my atonement, if you will, in my hero's journey, but to some degree, I do have a bit of shame over my past experience. So I'm a strong advocate. Like I always say, I'm your big brother. If I could be there on a first date, I'd have a shotgun pointed at the guy's face and say, what's your intention with my little sister? I've taken on the role of big brother or father. It's because I'm going to say part of it is driven by guilt and shame too. Because I look back now and I'm not very proud of I've ghosted. You know, I've said a lot of things and then completely changed my tune the next day. So I'm an advocate for buyer beware too. You know, not to suggest to be from a place of an alarmist per se. There are just a lot of human beings that are hurting out there. And we all want companionship, connection, and sex. But are they really capable?
Good point.
And I'm an advocate, like, look, you got to, that's like the most important piece of the puzzle. Is are they capable? And you have to be radically discerning.
I love that.
My whole coaching program is about discernment, which leads to better intuition.
I'll tell you, that's been huge for me because a relationship that I was in, I finally got to the point where I was telling myself, take the rose-colored glasses off, Christine, take them off and just sit still I did this reflection with myself, and it actually helped me to pivot a bit and take my power back, to your point of taking my power back, and where I was really like putting so much more into, it was a fantasy. I had created a bit of a fantasy versus this is the truth of what this relationship is right now, or the dynamics, and don't make it more than what it is. So it took me taking time to sit and reflect, taking the glasses off, and really then stepping forward from that place of that honesty with myself and discerning that, don't make more than what's really here.
So we have this amazing capacity to gaslight ourselves. So we can take a red flag and paint it green. Okay. Because, and it could be a trivial red flag, or it could be a gigantic red flag, right? So, and I say gaslight because we can talk ourselves into, like, because we see this other good stuff over here, right?
Yes.
And you go, okay, I'll try to accept that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or I'll negate it, or I'll make it trivial.
Right. I trivialize
it.
Things. Yeah.
And so here's the thing, and you and I talked about this before we started to record. You know, every experience, even a short-lived experience, is an experience. Yeah. That's why a lot of times I don't even use the word relationship. I say experience.
Yeah.
And even a 1-year relationship or experience, where, and I think sometimes they just need to ride its course. Okay. So you overlooked it, you painted the red flag green, you gaslit yourself, but there were all these other good facets to it.
Yeah.
If we go too far past the expiration point and really start compromising ourselves, that's the disservice we do.
Okay.
Because it's okay to enter into a relationship that doesn't go anywhere. I think we are so indoctrinated in this. It has to be the distance.
I'm with you.
And so, and I'm not advocating short-lived experiences either. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying sometimes we need that as a catalyst or a birthing, as you and I talked about before, into a next evolution of who we are.
Yeah.
So I went on 100 first dates, okay? We go, oh my God, that's like exhausting. And by the way, from a financial perspective, because we men are expected to pay, that was kind of, I spent a lot of money. I'm like, a therapist might have been less expensive, or maybe not. So it's, in other words, when we can look at something from that place, everything is a gift, even a short-lived experience. It's when we go too past the gift.
Yeah. And then you're clinging on, you're almost clinging on to things. I wholeheartedly agree. And like you said, we talked about this a little bit. I do want that long-term partner. Yeah. And part of my shift has been in being okay if there's something short-term with somebody, because the shift for me recently, and then we were talking about it, is what's in front of me now. And if somebody comes into my life and I feel a connection and there's something kind of stirring that I have this curiosity about, and maybe not everything on the card lines up, but there's something there. Yeah. It's an exploration. And I've had a first date that gave me a book, the name of a book. I read the book, and the book changed my life. So I truly believe that if we just allow ourselves to open up and let, I'm going to say, God, source, universe, bring to us that next golden nugget on our path. Yeah. It was hard for me to give. I was holding on so long to that. It's got to be this one perfect person. And even now with my vision, I'm okay if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not saying the next person has to be the person. It's such a freeing, and it's a more relaxed place, and it's a more fun place is what I'm coming to see, because again, I can be discerning in the moment. Does it feel good? Does it feel right? Does it feel expansive? And if it does, then do it. Yeah. And if not, then don't. And just know that you met a cool soul, but you don't feel any interest in engaging in anything, you know?
I had, it was right before New Year's Eve. I had a conversation with a woman who recognized me, or she wrote me on a dating site. She recognized me.
Okay.
So, and she happened to live in Arizona and I live in Los Angeles. Okay, for your audience. So, so I wrote her back, and then she wrote me this really sweet message back. Like, she didn't expect me to write her back. So we ended up having a dialogue, and we got on a telephone call. And oh my God, we are hitting it off. I mean, like, it was just like one after another, after another, after another, after another. We're just hitting it off. And we're like we reached a point like, do we want to explore like the idea of a relationship together? Now, she happened to live in Arizona. I live here. And we agreed that we'd speak the following morning. And we spoke the following morning. She goes, look, I really don't want to leave where I'm at. My children are here, that sort of thing. And I feel the same here. So it's a logistical thing. And we just agreed to go our separate ways kind of thing. My reason for sharing that is I had a 6-hour date. Okay. It wasn't in person. Okay. Yeah. It was over the phone. But I started to write down all of the experiences I had, the resonances and and where we were aligned with each other and where our values were the same and where we had these commonalities, and I felt the qualities of what she represented. And I put together like this list of like 30 things that happened in this 6-hour experience.
How cool is that?
And I'm like, okay, this is the framework for what I want to embody. So even a 6-hour telephone call, you know, has, again, as you said, even a date, okay? Maybe they introduce you to a book. Maybe it's just you recognize something in them that you recognize within yourself. I'm saying when we can look at these experiences as gifts and not so attached to the outcome, because that's the real tough piece. I think it's such human nature. Yeah. And I think women more so than men, and I'll share with you why I think it's different for women. I think for hundreds of thousands of years, women have predominantly been dependent upon men. So it's almost biological that women crave commitment more so than men. Okay. Men oftentimes went out, hunted, and they died. Okay. And women, that's one of the reasons why women live longer than men. You know, I mean, men just died off younger than women oftentimes. But I think there's almost a biological desire for commitment that's a little bit different than men. Okay. So, or like, and I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of years of the evolution of our imprinting and such like that. So when I've learned to let go, and when I know that you've let go of the attachment to the outcome, which that's a Buddhist way of viewing at things, it's interesting how you can appreciate your experiences in a different way. Yeah. No, that the unattached thing has been definitely a part of my journey. And so I had something about spirituality. Okay. So I'm going to ask you. Okay. So spirituality, Jonathan, is a big thing for me. I kind of give me a bump. Me too.
I live and breathe. I don't know. It's like my essence is like I see. In fact, it's on my profile, and we can maybe talk about my profile in a bit. Is I am a spiritual being having a physical experience. Yes, I believe that. I feel that, and it's transformed my life. So how? And I'm going to say this. I'm saying this from a humble place. I feel I've evolved so much. If I just look at the last year, and so if I go back 5 years, like I've evolved so much. Like I want that man who I see my partner being very close. And a gal said it to me yesterday at this event. They're within the same bandwidth. Like there's these bandwidths. They don't have to be exactly where I'm at, but they have to be in that bandwidth. Yeah. And how, like, what's your advice? And is it through my profile? Is it through where I'm going? How do I enhance my possibilities of magnetizing that guy to me?
Yeah, so you mentioned bandwidth, and I think of it like watermark or bandwidth in that same context, because what you're really talking about is alignment. Are they aligned with, because spirituality is a value for you. It's an embodiment of your being. And by the way, for those, you know, when I think of the word spirituality, I simply think of the connection to our higher self, the connection to our divine self, our connection to our divinity, our wisdom, our wisdom beyond our physical experience.
Okay.
And because I want to differentiate from religion, because
Thank you. Yeah.
religion has a spiritual component to it, but I think of spirituality as part of the inner journey, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, first, I mean, we talked about this, certainly. Okay, here's where it gets tricky. Someone's dating profile, like under religion, there's an option for spiritual but not religious. Some people are Christian and Catholic they're so ingrained in it, but they're spiritual. In other words, they're just so, not ingrained. They're just so used to being considered Catholic or Christian, but they actually have a spiritual component to it. So it becomes tricky if you start to filter out or filter in just for spirituality.
Okay.
So then on some of the dating apps, they include mindfulness as or depth, or they add a couple other
self-awareness.
Yeah. So those are certainly things to look for. If you could just simply do a search for that. Okay, you could be really laser focused, and you can do that and do it from the parameters.
I did that on, I think, Hinge, either Hinge or The League.
Okay,
you can search. I think it's maybe The League.
Okay,
yeah,
and so that's one way to do it. Also, just write in your first telephone call. So one of the things I advocate in my coaching, it's a technique called radical honesty, pre-qualifying your prospect. So, and I use it because it's a sales terminology, perspective. It's a perspective date, or it's a prospective boyfriend. So asking those questions, like my first question I ask a woman, right on the get-go, I'm like, look, I'm going to ask you some deep questions, or just to see if we're a fit for one another. Is that okay? First question is, what type of relationship are you looking for?
Okay.
What does commitment look like for you? What does commitment mean to you? Those are the couple first few questions.
Love that.
And then my second question is, are you familiar with personal development, self-help, and spiritual work? And if you have, do you have a daily practice?
Ooh, I love that too.
So if they're like deer in the headlights, I'm like, okay, how many more minutes do I have to be polite before I end this phone call?
Okay.
And I'm being tongue in cheek here, but I'm like, because some people might have dabbled in it. I think you and I are both, it's part of our lives.
I mean, exactly.
It embodies my life. So somebody, I would ideally want someone, I think you're in the same boat with me, is that you want someone that embodies their life. So you just start with the first couple questions, and you can do it via text messaging too.
Right.
And that would be
I love that, because I haven't been doing that.
Chase.
Yeah. And the phone calls, I've had a couple phone calls that were 90 minutes long. Very nice. We talked about a lot of stuff, and I did weave in the spirituality, but I wasn't as direct.
I'm like, fuck that shit. Yeah. Just get it done right away. You can, because here's the thing. A lot of my contemporaries just go have fun. Yeah. It's all about having fun. Yeah. Well, you can have fun with somebody and then spend 4 or 5 dates only to find out you're completely misaligned. I'm like, let's cut to the chase sooner rather than later. Now, certainly you can go to spiritual retreats and go meet people. Certainly, maybe even going to an Abraham workshop might be someone where it's aligned, a Joe Dispenza. Yeah. I'm doing a Hoffman process thing next week, so I know there'll be like-minded people there.
Right.
Those yoga is another place where people tend to congregate. Meditation facilities.
I did a group meditation recently, or breath work thing.
Breath work.
Co-ed, but I need to give myself time to get there early, so you can kind of mingle before everybody's on the mats doing the thing. So, all right, I like that. Okay, so I am going to absolutely switch my phone calls to be more direct in. And by the way,
when I say, okay, it's not very romantic. It's not romantic. Let's be clear. It's not romantic. At the same time, just say, hey, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions just to see if we're a fit? Yeah. And so we don't waste each other's time. Now, that's polite. It's not romantic. It's polite. How a person responds to that speaks volumes at their openness. If they're closed, like, oh, this feels like an interview, right?
Yeah.
That actually speaks volumes of their capacity to meet you at that watermark we were talking about. Yeah. So I use watermark different than band. So there's the bandwidth. Okay. But if their watermark is here, like their capacity to meet you is very closed and restrictive.
Yeah.
Like, I start with like radically hard questions right from the get-go.
Yeah, if I don't lose them then maybe there's a chance.
But I do it with humor. So I will sometimes say, how fucked up are you?
I'll come up with my approach.
Okay,
I don't think I'm that direct. Okay, so there were two things. So you'll see on the table, we've got some papers. It's not because we're messy. There are a couple things we were talking about maybe getting to. One is I have this intention card.
Okay.
And I've shared it. I shared it on my other.
Oh my God, it's scribbly.
I know. But maybe I'll get Jonathan's. I mean, I'm not actually looking for your advice on this or perspective, but maybe you have some nugget. So here's what I call it, my sacred partner card. And I have my intention that I say, I added monogamous, but I am I'll just forget that now. I am in a conscious loving relationship with my compatible divine life partner, soulmate, my sacred partner. And then I say he is spiritually awake and evolved consciously. Then everything else is mostly a we. We have a deep soul connection.
Oh, okay.
We have open, loving, conscious communication. We are growth oriented and supportive of each other's individual desires, growth, healing, health, and purpose. We have amazing chemistry and are sexually very compatible. I lead with my feminine, he with his masculine. We are financially secure and wealthy. We have a ton of fun together, laughing, doing things, just hanging out, dancing. I added dancing. That's kind of it. We have beautiful, muscular, healthy, fit bodies. And it's taking care. Taking care of ourselves. I'm not looking for whatever. We have a lot in common. Here we go. Lifestyle, values, and life philosophies.
Okay.
So you talked about lifestyle really being something that you need to line up with. Now, I don't specifically say these are kind of elements of my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Dancing, financial piece, taking care of our bodies, communication. Maybe talk a bit about lifestyle, because I know you said you can have the chemistry and you can have this, but if lifestyles don't align, it's not gonna go.
So first off, I love your list.
Okay.
And I'm so glad. I thought it was going to say all he, but I'm glad that you have we written there.
Yeah.
What's the he piece again?
He leads with his masculine and me with my feminine.
Okay, but the he is spiritual.
He is spiritual.
Everything else is we. So I just want you to know I love this. I absolutely love it. It's almost identical to my own.
Okay.
I'll share that with you later. So what was the question again?
The lifestyle piece. Because I don't say in my card what the lifestyle looks like.
So, well, I know in my videos I describe lifestyle like this.
Yeah.
I say that, and by the way, folks, I say this habitually in my videos just to give you context. I say I'm looking for a relationship where we spend 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills both in our personal and our professional life. Intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to either moving in together or getting married. Okay. So that's kind of the framework. That's kind of a framework to look at. So let's look at lifestyle, for example. You meet somebody. So I'm assuming you have a laptop lifestyle. You can work from wherever you want.
Yes.
Okay. So you have that flexibility.
Yes.
Now, let's say you met a man who has a traditional job and he's a workaholic. Okay. He meets everything here for argument's sake. Okay. But he's a workaholic. He gets up at 6 a.m. He doesn't come back at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he going to fit in with the life that you have?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Even though it might fit it might sound like it fit here, but he can only do it part-time, at his beck and call kind of thing. Okay. Or somebody who is raising small children. Mm-hmm. Does that fit into your lifestyle where you're at right now?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Probably not. Okay, so it's lifestyle is really about, can you blend lifestyles together? So recently on the Golden Bachelor, that just the Golden Bachelor divorce was they couldn't blend their lifestyles together. Now you would think they would have these conversations ahead of time,
right?
Which they probably did, but they were operating as, oh my God, if we love each other, it'll just magically work out. Well, dating is about experiencing each other in each other's lifestyle to see where you blend together.
Okay.
So it's just being aware of where a person at is in their life and being aware, because here's the tricky part at midlife. We're all kind of set in our ways.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of set in our way, and women tend to, not always, oh, I'll just morph myself for the guy.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't always work either.
Yeah.
That puts a lot of pressure on adapt. Women are already frustrated enough that they have to morph for the guy, but they have a propensity to do that, and that doesn't necessarily guarantee success anyway.
Yeah.
Am I making sense with
Yeah,
that?
no, totally. 1000%.
And by the way, each
Yeah.
other's homes, how far apart you live from each other, this is where long distance dating
Yeah.
becomes hugely problematic, because the reality is, even if you live 30 miles away from someone, okay, the early parts of dating, that's easy. You can go back and
Right.
forth. What are you going to do 6 months, a year, 5 years down the road?
Right. Is that sustainable?
Is that exactly?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having that awareness. So especially when you do long distance where you're getting on an airplane,
Yeah.
I see so many women, particularly, or men. I mean, well, obviously it takes a man to do it too, that are engaging in long distance cyber relationships where they
Yeah.
spend months, if not years, talking on the phone,
Yeah.
and they're like in this fantasy bubble.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've known of people that same
Yeah.
way. And I think my range is 25 miles, and it used to be even less. I'm like 25 miles. I think I can handle that. So, and I do see with all the tech and everything, people, and
Oh my God, I just figured out who you remind me of.
Who?
The daughter in Modern Family.
Oh.
Sorry, I interrupted everyone.
Okay. I get all kinds of different people.
Okay. I can't remember her name.
So the distance thing. And okay, so this is another thing I've learned from you, is to have, before you get physical, like have these conversations, because once the whole intimacy thing kicks off, you're clouded, and you're like, oh, we can make anything work. But again, is that really true for the long term? And again,
yeah. And by the way, I mean, not to suggest that love can't be all that, but it's also being pragmatic too. Mm-hmm. It's just, this is all about awareness and self-responsibility.
Yeah.
This is where the chemical cocktail that happens in chemistry and the fantasy and the illusion, there's an element where being pragmatic is about being grounded, being grounded in your self-responsibility. Yeah. Because let's face it, the chemical cocktail is so intoxicating. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But it's not sustainable.
So the grounding thing to me also, I think of, again, being honest with myself, because sometimes, and I've seen this when something's come up and it might not be a fit, but there's something there for me to learn, kind of what we've talked about before, in that, okay, so I'm going to go against my 25-mile rule because there's something, it's something I can't even name it sometimes. It's just something that's drawing me to that person. And then I end up having this big aha in my life. Like you said, it's been an experience that kicks off the next level of my journey closer to my person. So I think part of it is that last little thread of, is there still something there that defies the discernment? Then go for it, is what I would say.
To be transparent, I was in a relationship with someone for about a year and a half where it was long distance, which I'm not an advocate for it, but we had a lifestyle that could have, worked around that, and we eventually moved in together. What's interesting is our first telephone call, I didn't like our first phone call. I even told her I didn't like it when she reached out the second time. And I told her what happened, and I don't want to share publicly out of respect for her. There was this interesting thing. I think my intuition knew she wasn't the right long-term person for me, but I had this other strong pull that wasn't physical. I had this strong energetic pull that I meant to experience something with this person, and she said the same thing. So our relationship lasted a year and a half, and we had a very conscious uncoupling. But I think back now, there are times when we're pulled to people, maybe because they're not meant to go the distance, but they're meant to bring a gift in your life. And she brought so many gifts to my life. She said, I have brought so many gifts into her life that while it wasn't meant to go the distance, we were really a catalyst for each other for our next evolution of who we are and where we're at in our lives. So coming back to what we were talking about earlier, whether it's a short-lived 6-hour experience or one date or even a year and a half relationship. I do believe that we're all, they're just experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where then to me, as I'm sitting here listening to you, it's that, again, being in that place of awareness of like, or unattachment, and like it was here for a reason. I always say reason, season, lifetime.
Yeah,
like somebody's in my life for a reason, a season, a lifetime. And again, to have the appreciation and the gratitude for that person, for the time together, and then just release it without like, oh, I wasted my time, or oh, once again it didn't work out. Like, don't even bring up any of that extra. That's where you start creating drama for yourself. But take the beauty of it. And
by the way, what we're talking about is a very ninja level approach to this.
Ninja level. Okay.
Well, I'm saying it's a ninja level of awareness. This is hard for a lot of people that are still in that space of traditional expectations. And again, I'm still the biggest gigantic advocate for partnership. So I'm not here to trivialize that importance of that. At the same time, there's no need in beating oneself up if it doesn't go the distance.
Right.
And we are, I'm going to say from a societal perspective, especially those of us at midlife, there's a loneliness that occurs when your kids are launched and whatnot, and you feel like maybe the days in front of you are not as long as the days behind you.
Yeah.
So I can recognize that. At the same time, that's where self-love really, it's this practice that you and I are gigantic advocates of, because that to me is just as much a part of the journey as being mated with someone and experiencing life through another person's eyes too.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of a ninja move or a ninja conversation I had actually a couple days ago. The gal that I was talking with, I did this. Have you heard of theta healing?
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
so
I'm not intimately familiar, but I
did a session with her, and she knows this. Part of why I'm doing sessions with her is like, let's clear anything that I energetically that's here for that's holding me back from my calling in my soulmate, and the conversation led to her asking me who is your first soulmate.
Oh,
it's yourself. You are.
Wow, I need to sit with that for a second. Wow. Like that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Interesting. I never, ever, ever thought of that.
Okay. And she went on to say, and it so resonated with me, like everything, she said, look at your card, everything you want to have experience with this person, first experience with yourself, or make sure you're doing that and experiencing that with yourself. And The Artist Way, are you familiar with the book, The Artist Way? And this gal, you do this journaling in the morning, but she's very big about you take yourself out on, I'm not going to get it right, but basically you have dates with yourself.
Yes,
right?
I'm familiar. Ariel Ford talks about that.
So I was like contemplating that, and how even, it sounds silly, but like last night I was hugging myself. I was hugging myself, and how I've been craving hugs so much lately. I'm like, oh my gosh, and just like closing my eyes and just feeling the squeeze. And I've taken myself out to dinner by myself. But again, I see this for myself, the more I can love myself, and there's that inner me too, right? There, when you call it your higher self, your soul, your intuition, when I can be with her and be in bliss with her, and like, this is amazing. Look at what we're experiencing at this cool restaurant or at the beach. Yeah. Talk about, if you're already in bliss, like what level is that attracting at? So
well, from a law of attraction perspective, you become more of a magnetic attractor for what you want. So I always say, if you're looking for a needle in the haystack, bring out an electromagnet, or become an electromagnet. In other words, magnetize that into your life.
Yeah.
I love that. By the way, Ariel Ford, who wrote the book Soulmate Secret, when she called in her life partner, she'd go to the movie theater and buy 2 tickets. So there'd be an empty seat, but she bought the ticket. She put herself in that space. Some people do vision boards. And think of all the places they go. I know some of this might feel cheesy for some people, and some people might think it's ridiculous. The idea is to just emotionally put yourself in a state of receptivity. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
Because sadly, when human beings have enough negative experiences, it oftentimes closes their heart.
Mm.
And I would say that both men and women in the current dating environment are rather wounded from past experiences, and they have a closed heart. So what you're describing, everything you embody in your coaching and your life, everything is about opening your heart up.
Yes.
Because it's sadly, I think too many people have walls up.
Yeah.
And
I did for many years.
Yeah, and
totally.
And again, it's a very common state to be.
Yeah, yeah.
So the idea is to open your heart.
Yeah, and it goes back to that's part of the work. Do your work. Do your healing, whatever that is. So we don't have to go through my profile. I feel like
so
we've done a lot of good work. But if you want to give,
so she wants me to look at a dating profile.
You don't have to go. Like, don't put me through the washing
I am not
machine.
going to put you through the washer. So,
but if there's something that jumps,
but I do want something does jump out.
Okay,
and I want to share with you why I bring this up. First off, I love all your photographs, and most people have poor photographs. They're either poor quality photographs, or they're just there's lots of shadows, or their faces covered,
all sunglasses, I've seen that. Yeah.
Or the sushi plate you ate that we really don't care about. So I love that they're all photographs of you. The only critique I have on the photographs is this isn't my favorite first photograph.
Oh, interesting. I have a guy friend that loved that as my first
and
photograph.
Let me explain why.
Okay.
This or this one is my favorite because you're smiling with radiance in this.
This used to be my first one.
Yeah.
I have a pink sweater on.
So
yeah, interesting.
So
okay.
I like that only because there isn't the same radiance.
Got it.
To capture me.
Okay.
I'm not saying there's sadness in this photograph because your eyes aren't speaking that.
Mm-hmm.
It's your mouth.
Okay.
It's just a little passive there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
Your eyes are speaking,
yeah.
but your mouth isn't speaking. Whereas in this photograph or this photograph, your eyes and your mouth are speaking.
I've got a smile going. Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, the secret to a great smile is chuckling.
He's chuckling.
It's a chuckle right now. See, now, and I know, but that does is it captures your energy. The camera doesn't feel, most people struggle to smile.
Yeah.
So the secret, I'm telling everyone, I learned this from a model. She said the secret to a great smile is chuckling.
It's chuckling. Interesting.
Because now it doesn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But the camera just takes an instantaneous shot. So it doesn't even notice that you feel uncomfortable.
Very interesting. I'll try that with my selfies next time.
So that's the only thing, because this captures me faster than this captures me. As a cinematic photograph, I get why your friend likes this. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you ideally that
pink
would be
sweater smiling. I can easily swap that.
And then I love what you wrote in your bio, and you checked off all the boxes, I believe. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Whew.
That's
all right,
critique.
that wasn't so bad.
I was prepping her to tell her.
Oh my gosh, I was really nervous. And I have really, to your point, I have been very mindful and intentional. Like, I wrote this out, and I had some friends look at it. They gave me some feedback. Like, they're like, what's missing? Like, does this really capture your essence? So I made a few little tweaks and everything. And I do feel it really captures me. So I feel like I'm representing myself authentically, as you can with 7 slides in limited space.
So one thing we didn't talk about that we would almost need another episode.
Okay.
So this is your profile. The idea is to get someone to be interested in you. And we don't like that as human beings. We don't feel like we should have to do anything to make someone interested in you. But I just think of it like this. If you wanted to get a job at the most prestigious company on the planet, if you wanted to get a job, I'm saying we're self-employed, but if, let's say, we wanted Richard Branson as a client, then we're going to put our best presentation out there. Or if we wanted a job with Richard Branson, I'm just picking him out of hundreds of people.
Okay.
You're going to want to put the best presentation of yourself out there. That's marketing 101.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same in our love life. You want to be seen by your ideal partner. So put the best presentation of yourself to be seen.
Makes sense.
Now, what we're not doing here is looking at the men's profiles.
No, we're not.
And maybe I can do another session with you where I can teach you how to discern from the men's profiles.
Okay.
Because again, oftentimes we look at a photograph, we make maybe a judgment whether we'll swipe right or left. Okay. And then let's say we're about to swipe right, but then we read it and then we see something, a misalignment.
Yes.
Then we get oftentimes caught in that trap. Well, he's really handsome, or he's really this, or thank God he's 6'1", whatever it is.
He's got the green eyes I want.
Yeah, exactly. So it's also reading the body of it and say, is there a true alignment between the two of us?
Okay.
So those are just some things to think about.
No, I like that, because I think I've almost gone the other way, where I'm, to your point, if I see now they're Catholic, unless there's other stuff that's there, I'm like, and I grew up Catholic, but if I'm not seeing spiritual, I've done a lot of left swipes.
It's a really tricky space, because I vacillate between this too, because I hold space that a person can meet me, but you're right. Are they in that same bandwidth?
Right.
And ideally they would have checked that same box too, And politics can be a real tricky one for some people who lean incredibly right or incredibly left. That can be a sense of contention. I mean, there's all these little variables. Ultimately, and I know you talked about this in the most recent video you did. And by the way, I love following your journey.
Aww.
I'm excited to be on this train with you to follow how it goes. I believe also that we can almost look at someone's profile and feel an intuition. I really believe that. I believe when a person is really aligned to who they are, what they want, they know themselves. I believe even a dating profile represents energy.
I'm with you on that.
And I know I mentioned the energy of the photograph, as a differentiation, but I'm talking about, it gives me an insight into where their awareness is. So when someone puts together a poor profile, it tells me they're just not as aware of themselves. That they, like it tells, like your profile tells me you're pretty aware. Like I can feel that from your profile. And I think you can look at other people's profiles and really discern the same thing. I think our next evolution of human experience is really getting fine-tuned to reading energy and connecting in that space. And if you ask anybody who's in a pretty healthy, happy relationship, they almost all say the same thing. When we met, we felt a sense of knowing. There was this sense of energy. There was there was this, there was something beyond the surface. In other words, it's like, it's almost divine.
You can't necessarily name it.
Exactly.
It is an energy thing.
Exactly.
Okay. So this has been amazing. How about as I'm spitting on your table here, we could go on forever. And I'm excited for another conversation. But for this conversation, any final Jonathan wisdom? No pressure. It could be something stupid and silly. I don't know. Closing comments on how, set yourself up for success with midlife.
Did you say sex?
Might have been a little slip there.
That's okay.
That's a whole nother conversation.
That's another conversation for sure. When to have physical intimacy. What would be my So I've been on a big kick of the idea of know thyself. And part of knowing thyself is really getting clarity on the type of relationship you want. And what you've just illustrates is you've got, through your list, you've kind of really identified what you're looking for in a relationship. And so my invitation for everybody is to really ask themselves a question. What does a relationship look like for me? What does commitment look like for me? What does commitment mean to me? Like, spend time exploring that, not in the nebulous, in the clouds, but really granular, like what you did. And embody that and feel into it. And I say this because oftentimes women don't actually do this. Men don't do it at all. But I'm inviting everyone, both your male and female audience, to really get a sense, if you do want a committed relationship, then get really clear on what that looks like for you.
I love that. Because if we don't have the clarity, then it's like we're just the sail in the breeze, just moving here and there. Which I'm going to go backwards for a second. And you were talking about the Ariel Ford and what she talks about, and again, the vision. One of the things I heard, and I'm curious if you do this for yourself, is like acting as if that partner is already here. So it could be, it doesn't have to be setting 2 place settings, but it's an energetic thing where you're.
I'm laughing because I have something to share with you.
Okay. Like, and I do this sometimes. Like I don't, because some people, a lot of people get stuck in, they're not here and they're in that lack energy.
Yeah.
But I am in, like when I read my card, I feel them here in the now. And I just go about my day as if they're in my day. Yeah. I'm not talking to them necessarily, but there's nothing that comes in for the most part that's, oh, I don't have. Yeah. It's like all around me. And again, this is maybe a little ninja, but all around me, I'm like feeling that I can tap into the energy of them with me.
Yeah. So I shared this earlier. I actually walk the beach every day. I do about a 4 or 5 mile walk, about an hour and a half. And I put on, meditation type music. And I literally, I daydream about what it looks like to connect with this person. Ooh. And I even, and it's a fun little thing for me to do. And it's like, we connect on a dating site and how we interacted with each other at first and how the first telephone call goes. And I play this little daydream for myself and I take it down different nooks and crannies. Okay. And I do this for about an hour, close to it. Now, maybe it's about a half hour. And and the ideas, and I also imagine what it feels like. I shared this earlier. I imagine what it feels like. And to the extent that I have an expectation that's going to look like this, I have no attachment that it looks this way. It's just putting me in an energetic state of abundance, an energetic state of receiving, an energetic state of joy. And I have conversations, like I'm having the conversation, like our first telephone call, like what happens. And it's just a fun little game I play for myself.
I love it.
And and it'll be interesting. Like I do also, every once in a while I go, you know what? There's a really good chance it's going to happen exactly like this, like a Joe Dispenza.
I've heard people have that experience.
Totally. So you know what? I'd rather think big, than think small.
Yeah.
So I invite everybody to do that.
Think big. Have that big vision for the person, and be in the energy. So that's a big reminder takeaway for me is being the energy. So Jonathan.
Oh,
thank you.
Oh,
this has been amazing.
This has been fun. Can I have a hug?
Of course you can. All right. More to come.
All right.
Thanks for this.
My pleasure.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and that you've already walked away with some nuggets that you can apply to your own dating, mating, and relating journey. Stay tuned for more. Again, lots of nuggets to bring back to you. So that's it. That's it for the episode today. And as far as what's coming up, let me tell you, I'm not exactly sure. But one thing I do know is I am absolutely on the right track. And I invite you to keep staying on this train with me as we both journey toward our own true love. And we continue to learn things about ourselves and grow and evolve and have fun along the way. So more to come in this next episode, but you will be as surprised as I will as things unfold for me this next week. Okay, so in closing, I want to thank you again for being here for this episode and for being on this journey with me, for giving me your feedback. If you're not yet subscribed, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now, and also sign up for notifications. That way you will be first in line when the next premiere is scheduled. But until we meet again, I wish you nothing but grace and ease on your own beautiful journey of finding your true love.